so much, Michael and Matt, and welcome to our audience here at Keycodes Media's Burbank facilities and anybody who's watching this on streaming. My name is Deborah Kaufman. I'm a journalist, and once again am moderating this panel. We have another fabulous group of panelists who are going to examine some of today's most challenging issues. Let's leave it at challenging. And they're going to each introduce themselves. So I'll start off with, far to my right, Seth Hallen.
Hi, I'm Seth Hallen. I'm founder, managing partner of Hallstone Ventures. I've been in the supply chain for the last 25 years, mostly as a service provider to the studios and production companies, post houses, other sorts of service providers, and really leaning into that intersection of creativity and technology. I've always been fascinated by that. I'm not a creative or really an engineer, but I have a gene, I think, in each one, and I was always the guy that had to build environments to put creatives, enabling them to do their best work, and engineers, but also figure out a way for that all to make money at the end of the day. And so now more than ever, what a time to talk about technology unleashing creativity. It's a fascinating time. And now I'm an investor and advisor for early stage companies in AI and media tech.
Thank you so much, Seth. Next is Carrie Grubin. We have a clip first to show for Carrie Grubin's work.
Welcome to the 30th anniversary of the HPA Tech Retreat.
Don't sit back. Don't say I'll learn it next week. Start now.
AI and advanced technologies unlock next levels of human potential.
I think of it as like a grand experiment. Let's get the experiment started.
We've got amazing technology. No reason to hold back. Our future is going to be fantastic if we work together.
This isn't the time to feel.
Human creativity is always at the heart of the creative process.
Helping to create the next generation of creative tools.
We all have the potential to shape the next zeitgeist.
If you fight for it and you believe in it, you can drive change.
Innovating how machines work is easy. Innovating how people work is hard.
So, as Deborah mentioned, my name's Carrie Grubin, and what Seth didn't tell you is that for the past 9 years, he was the president of the Hollywood Professional Association, and I have the yes, give him a round of applause. And I have the honor of being the current president of the Hollywood Professional Association. Thank you. So I'm a very lucky person because I get to give back during my volunteer time as the president and help our industry. And my day job is I'm membership services director for the Trusted Partner Network, which is a wholly owned nonprofit under the Motion Picture Association. And our main mission is to help keep content secure. So we'll talk a bit about that and talk about the industry. So looking forward to it.
Thank you so much. And next we have Rory Gordon, or Aurora Gordon, and we have a clip for you as well, right?
Yes.
Okay, let's see your clip.
Hello. Hi, Miss Fancy Lady. Just really having a good time right now. My son's coming in a minute.
Dad, I'm your daughter, Desiree. I've always been Desiree.
We haven't spoken in a while.
How long?
23 years.
What happened? This place looks exactly the same.
Well, you know what they say, it ain't broke, don't fix it. Oh, that's broke. I gotta fix it.
We have a very special surprise guest. She ran a very fancy art gallery in New York City. That's where Taylor Swift buys sunglasses.
So what happened up there? I arranged for gallery space, and then my funding fell through.
Your bus broke.
And your lip of your mama broke.
Oh, she brought jokes with her from New York.
I ain't perfect and I don't pretend to know it all. But Desiree coming back and opening up like that was a major step.
Oh my God.
What?
We in your living room, girl. You done took the pleasure off the furniture? Are you crazy?
How about I crash with you?
It ain't crashing when you're home.
I'm totally gonna have to redecorate. Don't gaslight me, Dad.
I wouldn't do that because I don't know what that is. To my daughter.
To our daughter.
Can I get your number?
Hard pass.
I wasn't asking you out. I just thought I might need to get in touch.
It's time to declutter. We can start by replacing that eyesore on the wall.
This is my prized possession, and it ain't going nowhere, son. Daughter, damn it!
Jar. I'm gonna retire off this.
My name is Rory Gordon, and I am a colorist. I am a ride or die pixel pusher. I like making a thing, and I also am a published color scientist, and have spoken at events with the HPA as well. So yay for education and making stuff.
Thank you, Rory. And last but not least, we have Jeff Sengpil, who is associated with this lovely company.
This lovely company. My name is Jeff Sengpil. I'm the CTO here at Keycode Media. I've been a technologist for quite a while now, building facilities. Like Seth, I came from the facilities building part. We both have pedigree with light iron. I also worked at Chainsaw back in broadcast. I've built facilities for a long time, trying to enable creatives and enable workflow to have people be able to achieve their dreams.
Thank you so much. Before we get into the conversation of what's been changing in post, and I'm sure AI is high in everybody's minds, we wanted to acknowledge the fact that it has been a very, very hard year for a big variety of reasons in this last year, not just for the people of Los Angeles, but specifically in our industry. And you probably all know somebody who has lost their home or lost their job, or moved out of state, or had other hardships related to this. And I want to give an opportunity for our panelists to maybe mention things they've experienced or people close to them have experienced.
I just want to say if anyone is struggling to find work, I know so many people that have gone through ups and downs lately, and I just want everyone to know that you're not alone, and it's not your fault, and somehow the people who have chosen to pursue this path are really resilient and very creative, and there'll be a place for all of us. We just don't know what it looks like.
Thank you.
So.
Thank you. Well, I'm going to start with something a little traditional for what we usually do at the Pre-NAB Editors Lounge, which is how many people here are editors? It is an editors lounge. Oh, quite a number of people are editors, okay. How many people here are colorists? How many people do other jobs in the post-production industry? A lot of people. How many people are not in the post-production industry, but perhaps production or some other industry? A few. How many of you are worried that you're going to lose your job to AI? Not too many. Good. Okay. That is, thank you very much. Very informative. In the past, we used to take votes on which editorial platform you use, but I think we're going to dispense with that. We've left that one behind. So the first question for all the panelists, and we can maybe start with you, Jeff, and go down, is what the biggest shift you've seen in the creative post-production industry over the last year? What are the biggest shifts?
Well, the biggest shift is or editorial, and not everybody's not going into the office any longer.
So this is here to stay. It wasn't just a fluke of COVID.
It wasn't a fluke of COVID, and the thing is, over the last year, COVID is essentially done in terms of a problem for the workforce, and everyone's still distributed. So that's the biggest shift that we didn't shift back.
You know, and it's funny because we've talked about remote collaboration for many, 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 many years now, but it took this long for it to be here.
Yep.
Thank you. Rory.
I would say the options for people in terms of distributing content has been, and being prepared for distribution opportunities in major platforms, but also more niche platforms. I think that's something that hasn't necessarily gotten a lot of airplay that's, affecting us too. Hopefully there's opportunities for smaller creators in those alternative distribution chains too.
Yeah, I think a lot of the trends will agree with that in terms of the democratization of media, and what that means yet we don't 100% know. Has it impacted your job at all in what you do?
I would say there's more and more bleed over between we need to be able to pivot a piece of media for multiple delivery targets. There's more, then that's been the case for a few years now. I think episodic and features is more or less the same land. It's helpful to be at a facility that's got both, that's got the ability to pop into a theater and the color scientists support moving to an emissive display. But in addition to that, all of the, I think we're trying to be as prepared as possible for delivery specs to change in the middle of a project. Yeah. Because I think people are trying to, you see like co-distribution, different deliverables for two studios that are sharing the load on one show is absolutely a thing that's been more and more prescient, I think.
Okay, great, thank you, Rory. And what about you, Carrie?
Yeah, well, I think there's two big things. So one is, what do we call content now? There was a Deloitte report that came out today, you may have seen it in the trades, that talked about it's around 57% of viewers now, Gen Z and Gen X and millennials, actually are watching creator content, not what we call traditional episodic and feature that we've been used to. And we'll go into, I'm sure, a bit later about the fact that just because something is a content creator doesn't mean it doesn't have the same kind of lift. And in fact, we talked about that at the tech retreat with Mr. Beast, with the Key Code team, about how that was a massive undertaking with a lot of people. So that's, the definition of content is changing. Then you have, where is it happening? It is happening all over the globe, and there's a real geoeconomic challenge with content right now. The economics are kind of upside down, especially when you look at California, when you look at the United States versus the rest of the world. And so understanding how that economic impact is going to change how we all work and how we all collaborate is something that we really have to be paying attention to, because those are going to be the biggest impacts. And AI is just one of the tools that is having the impact. There are many different factors that are changing, this cost conversation.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with Carrie. We get distracted by things that happened recently in recent years, COVID, the strikes, and I've heard people blame the strikes, which is kind of interesting because it's not, how can you blame strikes, right? Strikes are caused by something. And really what we're dealing with, what all of us are dealing with, is this economic transformation. It is the whole way content, let's call it scripted narrative, long form content, TV shows, movies, the economics of how you make it, how much it costs, how you distribute it, and how you monetize it, especially for the studios, have fundamentally completely changed because of streaming, a couple of layers of disruptions there that we haven't caught up for. That's really what's going on here. And, I'm fascinated by trying to figure out how we solve that problem. Part of it is what Carrie said, leaning into understanding what content is, looking at the this creator economy, not having this hard line between what we call Hollywood and what we call everyone else. We've got to kind of look at the whole kind of the whole pie. When I've been doing some homework on this, and when you look at, I'm going to publish an article that has data, and so it's not just my opinion, but when you look at everything Hollywood does, but also everything the so-called creator economy is doing, and you add that all up, there's actually more content and more creators and more revenues than ever before. There's more work going on than ever before. It's just that kind of the pie that we used to be Hollywood has shifted. And so we have to think about that. Like the old saying goes, follow the money. I mean, we have to think about that as a community.
So the pie is a lot bigger, but there are many, many, many more slices.
Yeah.
So that the impact of that means that people who currently have had professional jobs can count less on that.
And if you shift your thinking, you'll see other new opportunities. There's tremendous opportunity. You just have to kind of start to look at things differently.
Okay, well, any comments about that? I mean, Rory, you're a creative person. Are you coloring things for YouTube, destined for YouTube?
I mean, I have had a lot more short form content in the last year working on. I don't know that, I mean, I think the trend that I see is that somebody who's not necessarily a part of Hollywood can say, oh, I have tools that can automate this, and I can do, let's say, like a C- job on this, but it turns out that's not actually the thing that's the draw for it, like finishing, for example. Mm-hmm. I have to believe, so one time in film school, I went to a program that required film and animation, so I had to take some animation classes, right? And I was going through and like making a spreadsheet of like, oh, okay, this shot starts at this time code, and this one. I showed it to my partner who's in animation, and they were like, yeah, that's an X sheet, that's a thing that exists in animation. So I do have faith that eventually people are gonna realize like, damn, finishing is hard. Like it takes a lot of space. It's really better to hire a specialist for it, but I do think that like, there's no telling how many jobs we're gonna lose and lives are gonna be disrupted before that cycle's over. It could be 3 months, it could be a year, it could be 5 years, it could be 10 years, really, don't you think? I mean, like if you think about we talked a bit about this in our prep call a little bit, the cycle of film coming back. Film is very, and that business seems to be having quite a renaissance right now, which is great. But it's just so hard to tell people who love a craft deeply, yeah, just tread water for 5 years, or yeah, just totally shift your focus. And a lot of us are so specialized.
Or just work for free for 5 years.
Or just work for free. You know, I do think that like how the mechanics of doing that are incredibly difficult to wrap your head around, especially at the scale that you are looking at now. Because how many people have families whose kids have been raised? Grey's Anatomy, for example, that show's been on the air for 20 years now. If somebody had a kid year one, their kid is in college now. And like, someone who's built their life around this business and the whole thing is sort of shifted, I don't think we can be super blasé about, people will just pick this up, because it's a little bit hard to pick up your entire livelihood and also the livelihoods of everyone you know and love.
And Jeff, let me extend that to the post facility. I mean, if kids have, Adobe Creative Suite or, Resolve, I mean, a lot of this content is just all being posted at home. Does that pose a threat to the post house?
The best thing I read about this lately was someone said the advent of fast food was not the end of fine dining. People's appetites changed, and certain companies certain dining establishments did not survive, but it spread around. And there became other jobs that paid less, but did a lot more of the work compared to those who were still doing fine dining, because you can still go out and do this. Just because people have the tools doesn't necessarily mean that they have the skills. If someone went to film school and is at home with the tools and delivering to YouTube, they don't need to be in a facility to do that. Mm-hmm. But they also could be at home delivering for an episodic television show. So it's just a question of where they're connected. And also at the end of the day, if you're not getting an audience on YouTube as a content creator, you don't have the plug-in to get to the rest of the industry. You can't go and get the work. And that was one of the things about everybody going home that I was kept wondering about is, you've gone home, how are you going to get your next job? Mm-hmm. The people you need to work with all the time and talk to all the time, you're not seeing them in the break room. You're not, going out for drinks on Friday night afterwards. So there's trade-offs to all of this.
Right. Well, I know there's several things that we've talked about in the past as trends, And I'm wondering if we can revisit some of those and see how they're impacting us now. Everything from tax credits that various states have offered, to globalization, which has certainly been a growing trend, to changes in the workflow. I'm just throwing those out there as examples. Carrie, looks like you have something to say on that.
If you've been watching the news lately, there's a really big effort called the California Production Coalition right now, along with Stay in LA and other organizations working towards what Governor Newsom has proposed as the $750 million tax credit, increasing to that amount. Right now it's currently $350 million. And actually they were in Sacramento today talking about it and have pitched this idea of a 35% instant tax credit for anything that stays within 30 miles of, like, I want to say it was like La Brea and Olympic or something. Like, literally they had it down to a specific site. But the point being is that there are a lot of people fighting to try to understand how they keep work in California. We got hit by the fires. We had major impact because of these geoeconomic issues before anything else happened. And just this, the cost of doing business in Los Angeles, in California, has a big impact on where companies can put work. And so know that there are efforts like California Production Coalition that you can get involved with. They are looking for people all of the time to continue to raise their voice and talk about what the needs are. But I think we also have to look at, we all have practice at this. I mean, how many of you, when I was an assistant editor and you'd go to the dub stage, there were 10 people in the room putting things up on the dummies, right? Putting up all of the tracks that then would feed the stage. Or I remember sitting with a synchronizer and a splicer and popping tracks as an apprentice editor, right? Electronic editing changed how we did editorial. Did it? And in fact, I think the crews are bigger now than they ever were when it was just like 3 or 4 of us in a cutting room when it was film. You know, 250,000 feet of film was a lot to shoot on a movie. Now, like 1 million would be tiny, so, or the equivalent of 1 million feet of film would be tiny.
I'm curious though, do you know, there was a competition among states and Canadian provinces to offer the best incentives. My understanding is some of them soured on it when they realized this wasn't going to be something they could withdraw and maintain the production level. Have states gotten sick of it and stopped? Where are we at with that?
Yes,
So,
it's a moving target for sure.
You can simply watch production. I mean, we used to see a lot of production out of Louisiana.
Right.
We don't. Why was Breaking Bad out of Albuquerque? Why not out of somewhere in California? I'm certain we've got plenty of meth. They had production tax credits. This is all about tax credits, and it's all about the bottom line for the companies that are producing and distributing this content. It always has been.
Right. Okay. Good point. I know globalization is something else that, and you, Seth, you mentioned something about globalization, and I mean that's been a trend for a long time. Where are we at with that now? How is that changing things?
When we talk about globalization, meaning how productions are, you know, we're using cloud-based collaborative environments to be able to do productions.
Yeah, and also the distribution of content globally, right?
Well, actually, I think that given some of the new tech coming out, and you know, when we talk about AI, machine learning, as far as localization services, I think there's an opportunity to help for those tools and that technology to help drive monetization, get it more quickly into other territories, other languages, give other territories and localized areas a similar experience as if it was content from their locale. So I think we're going to see a lot of enablement to be able to drive monetization around with content all around the world with some of this new tech.
Do you have the Engadget slide? I think it's slide Jeff 2. So there was a production that was shot in Sweden, and it was distributed in AMC theaters. What they did is they had the Swedish actors come in, read it in English, and then used AI to manipulate their mouths.
And so those days of you know, the actors are speaking in another language, but it's dubbed over in a different language, and it's not matching. There's no lip sync, and so everyone else except that location where that material was shot is going to have a different experience. So to be able to use these tools to enable everyone to have the same experience, I think is a huge advantage to monetize.
And you certainly see the globalization in terms of content distribution, whether it's YouTube or Netflix. Yeah.
Definitely. The thing, though, these tools don't exist at that level yet. These tools haven't democratized. And the other thing that's interesting is localization companies that I've visited lately over the last year, the pipelines are coming in. They're not going out. They're coming into the United States. It's foreign content that is being modified for our market, dubbed and you know, all that fun stuff.
Interesting. Are we seeing changing workflows at all? Are there new tools? And we are going to get into AI, but maybe other new tools that might be changing workflows, or other necessities that are changing workflows? Maybe the answer is no. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say the answer is yes.
Okay.
One of the things we're seeing out there is universal screen description for VFX.
Okay.
So that's something out there that allows VFX collaboration across multiple houses to happen. As you watch the end of any Marvel movie, you know, there's 7,000 different VFX houses involved. The other thing we're seeing is basically where post is production is post. So because there's a lot of VR production that's coming up now, we're doing what would be considered post-production processes to material that then is, you know, behind actors. And then afterwards, we can go back in and we're posting that. Or people are shooting material either on green screen or now with new technology where you just shoot them and then you replace everything behind them in post. The entire environment, all the lighting, everything, it's all changed, it's all done as a post-production process.
So virtual production has really become an old standby, so to speak.
Correct, and it's bled into post.
Yeah, it's ironic because 3 years ago, virtual production, everyone was like, "What is this Mandalorian thing they're doing?"
Right.
That was only 3 years ago, everybody.
Is it really only 3 years ago?
It's only 3 years ago. So I just actually came from the Game Developers Conference last week, and what I see as the trend is a lot of the crossover of tools from other industries coming in. And again, nothing new. We used to get things all the time from other industries, so this is just a continuation. And so things like version control that is really controlled in the gaming environment, those tools being used for virtual production and for other portions of the workflow. A lot of the mocap technologies and things that you see being used for visual effects and for other work, those are being refined as skills, especially along with AI, to be able to streamline processes. And there's this transference across different kind of lines of business to using that. So there's a lot of bleed from other types of verticals creating content, because they are creating content, verticals creating content that then is now feeding in and out, which in a way gives all of you a really great opportunity to start to be curious and investigate what those industries are doing, because they don't necessarily have the skills, training, and experience to understand what our media and entertainment pipelines need. They know what they need to get a game ready so that someone can play it, but how do they take those tools and then apply it to what we all have been doing for a really, really long time? So that's an opportunity for all of you as experts to be able to find what the path is kind of to the next phase of your careers.
And that's a perfect segue, because I know Rory was talking about how she's seeing more short-form content. What about you, Jeff? Are you, all of you, I mean, are you seeing new kinds of content come through your doors that, like, oh, this is an interesting new potential market for us?
Well, I mean, the Mr. Beast thing that happened at HPA.
Maybe you can explain that a little bit for people who weren't there.
So basically, one of the our friends from Mr. Beast came to us and said, we're needing to do Beast games. We're going to have 99 cameras, and we want to do multicam. 99 cameras, multicam. That is one of the largest multicam environments in existence, and we wound up selling them one of the largest SSD arrays of storage in existence, because they still needed the old-fashioned tools that we in this industry have been relying upon, and the process is to get that job done. So the thing there is, it goes back to my analogy of the restaurants. You know, if Taco Bell becomes the fine dining experience like it did in some of the movies, they have to up their game. And the thing is, when these folks who are content creators go to up their game, we're here and we've got the processes. And you know, the other thing we also do, related to what you said, is we follow other industries down dark alleys and we knock them over and grab processes and technology out of their pockets. We have no shame in that game. We use whatever makes the most sense.
And just to make sure we don't gloss over, I'm assuming not everyone knows, Mr. Beast is a YouTuber. Everybody knows that, right? He's one of the biggest YouTube influencers or content creators.
Yeah,
and
than the Super Bowl. For
that's
some
right,
of those videos.
and crossed over into getting an Amazon show, and also one of the most technically demanding, productions. And so that's an interesting use case, isn't it? So that's the kind of thing I think we need to pay more attention to.
Yeah, there's a friend of mine who he cut reality. He did a big documentary. He's been involved in the industry for years. He worked on Beast Games.
Yeah, well, so that kind of ties into jobs in the industry as well. I'd love it if you could all of you predict or maybe just to observe what's going on now. What roles in the post industry are growing? Which roles are shrinking?
Here's my big concern about shrinking roles and saying, hey, this role isn't necessarily, this is something that somebody doesn't need to be wasting their time on this type of task. I am hearing a lot of auto matching tools. Eventually that's going to be something that you just use to sync up, your 900 shots, and then you just put a look on it. And won't that be great? Because you'll get to spend more time just doing the creative part. And what I think people don't understand who aren't pushing the pixels every day is that, the study of all of those frames is contributing to who I am as an artist and who I am as a technician. And if that data weren't valuable, you wouldn't be training your large language models on it. So that's the thing that I worry about, this cult of optimization that's happening of do we really understand what's going to happen when we lose the mental runways of doing these tasks that are not about, they're not the sexy part of it, but that's how we form our habits, that's how we form our discipline. And I'll go down fighting forever on how valuable matching is, and also it's subjective. There's simultaneous contrast that's changing from frame to frame. We cheat and lie constantly. That's why there's a spiritual match and there's a literal match. There's if you're going by this is just a literal match and we trained the system, let's just go on skin tones. Well, who's the most person in the scene? And I suppose if you move towards agentic AI too, you could train it look for the person that's speaking or whatever. But I just don't want to be part of an endless, frictionless tube that pushes out stuff. I want to have some friction. I want to have it with the people that I care about. So.
Yeah, bravo. Yeah. And you're right, that's throwing the baby out with the bathwater, isn't it? It would be easy to do, and in people's enthusiasm for the new and the easy.
It's not about, you learn some from reading, you learn more from doing, you learn a lot from studying, and the only way to get paid to study is to have a job that has some tasks in it that you repeat a lot.
Right.
And who here has never failed?
It's the only way to learn.
Yep.
Yeah. Bring up another trend that was hot, which seemed like we talked about it endlessly, and you brought it up because we haven't talked about it for a while, the cloud. Can we do productions in the cloud? Do facilities go all cloud or hybrid or on-prem? The whole cloud storage and cloud production paradigm.
The answer here is, oh my God, it's a mess. Can someone bring up the deadline slide, Jeff 1? So there is something on the president's desk right now. Our friends from Google and OpenAI have asked for complete waiving of copyright to train large language models basically for the sake of national security. So whatever you think about that argument, whatever, and then there's the notes that come from Hollywood and the letters that come from Hollywood saying, no, you need to continue with the licensing model and the way we've always done this to protect our livelihoods and all of this stuff. This is what's going on right now. This is what's being decided. So imagine this goes the way that Google and OpenAI want it to go. All of a sudden, everything we've done is now completely on the table. Everything that's out there could theoretically be used to train models. Now, we've been hearing about the 2030 vision. This tells me that the large studios and the copyright holders are going to say, no way, and there's going to be a retreat from the cloud. People are going to pull their stuff out of hyperscalers. They're going to look to either do it on premises, like the old school ways we've done, or they're going to set up localized, co-located data centers that they control. Basically, media and content sovereignty will become a very, very interesting issue if this goes the way that I think it'll go. I mean, this future is being written now as we sit here, and it's going to be interesting to see how this goes in the next couple of months. We may have answers for this by NAB.
So people are doing it proactively, seeing what's coming down the pike?
I don't think people are looking at this proactively. I think when it hits, it's going to be a bomb that's going to go off, and content holders are going to go, I'm not having my stuff trained.
Carrie was nodding her head during all of this, so Carrie.
Well, yeah, there's a lot influx right now, obviously, on this subject, and it's interesting because literally a month ago we were talking about sovereignty and talking about with one of the lead counsels from the Motion Picture Association about this exact topic, about how do you copyright material that is in part or in whole created through these new tools like artificial intelligence using large, language models and so forth. So it is a moving target, and it'll be interesting to see where it goes. And so that's the one thing that I would recommend is just being aware that every time you're doing something creatively, just know that that's your intellectual property, especially if you're the one who has created it. And so just be careful with it. Just like when you had a painting or you have something that's of value, just recognize that it has value and be conscious of what you do with it, right? You wouldn't leave your door unlocked and your money sitting in your car, right? It's some of it is common sense type of approaches. So it'll be interesting to see where things go. New things like this are happening every single day. So staying on top and watching in the trades and talking with colleagues in the industry now more than ever is really important.
So interesting because I'm sorry, Murray, go on.
Oh, I'm seeing a lot of colleagues pull out of Instagram and they're going towards, I'm actually seeing a lot of just old school newsletters and blogs coming back where people are just sharing directly with each other, which honestly feels kind of refreshing of I don't want all of the information. I want the stuff that I'm interested in deeply. That's one way to fight back, I suppose.
I mean, up until recently, it was can we do a production entirely in the cloud has been kind of a technology goal. And now...
And the thing is, technology's there. The budgets aren't there. It's always been about cost up until this point. And now it's about issues that are outside of budget.
Well, some key parts of that, quite frankly, are cost prohibitive. I think that's what you're saying. I mean, either the budgets aren't there or things are just way too expensive for really any budget. It doesn't make any sense even if you had the money, right? So.
Yeah, I think that's actually a really important point is that there are some models, and I don't have the specific data, that when you look at all of these new tools, just like any new tool, in the beginning, it is not for the the masses to use. A lot of it is R&D. It is very, very expensive, and so if you look at, different models of economics, you have to have a point where we're still in a lot of these cases in not even early adopter phase. We're earlier than that. So, so it's also kind of keeping calm about all of it and educating yourself so that you know what is actually imminent and what is really further off. What I think is throwing everybody off, where I see this as you look at all these changes, and all of us have seen changes in our careers and over the course of our time in this industry, is just the change happens a lot faster now. Right? So what used to take 10 years, then 7, is now 18 to 24 months. And so it's the speed at which the change is happening that makes it really, really unsettling. You don't have time to get used to it, I don't think.
And a perfect segue, now that we're talking about what the government may or may not do, what, per Google and OpenAI, is the ever important content security topic. And, says Carrie. Yes, I mean, obviously that's just, has not eased off. It's gotten more and more crucial. But Carrie, why don't you give us your perspective with the Trusted Partners Network?
Yeah. So for those of you who don't know what Trusted Partner Network is, again, we help keep content secure. We maintain the best practices for content security. And actually, I don't know if you could put up the slide that went up earlier, which was that single slide with the attacks. So within the Motion Picture Association, we have a couple of different groups. The Alliance for Creativity and Entertainment, think of that as our law enforcement group. They take down bad actors, take down piracy rings, and so forth globally. And through the information we have from our membership and all of the assessments, it's a centralized repository where people can talk about their current compliance with the best practices. We can see a correlation directly between what the law enforcement group says are the highest areas of risk, which are missing multi-factor authentication, the inadequate password policy. So, someone left my company and I didn't remove them from our system kind of thing, right? And then weak firewall security. It ties directly back to where, as we're doing, people are doing their self-assessments and third-party assessments, to areas where they're not meeting the best practices. So those numbers are different best practices. So password management. If your password management isn't strong, then you have a chance of someone trying to get into your system through your passwords being weak. Firewall management, the same. Vulnerability management. If you don't understand where you are at risk, then that's something that can be exploited. And then also penetration testing to see how easy is it to break in. So, so from those perspectives, a lot of this is everything old is new again, because the threat actors will go in and leverage old types of tools. And I'm sure are you getting the text where someone's texting you and saying, hey, we might have a job for you, and you don't know who it's coming from?
Yes.
Or free offers or spoofing of emails. They're getting much more sophisticated because of AI, so it starts to get looking more and more realistic. So some of it is about being vigilant, and also taking a look, if you're an individual, knowing how to protect yourself. But then as a company, whether you're 2 people or 2,000, is just having a good sense of what those areas are where you should be watching and making sure you're secure.
So Jeff, you're shaking your head.
Yeah,
tell me what you're doing at your
the question I've got is, who's changed their password since Thanksgiving? Show of hands. Yeah.
Yes, I have.
See, this is the problem. We are the problem. Yes. Change your password today. Make it long. Make it a nice long phrase that you'll remember.
So are you upping your security protocols at the company as well? What things do you pay attention to the most?
We just changed out here at KeyCode, we changed out our email scanning processes, much to the chagrin of some folks, because it's a little more stringent. Sorry, we're working on it. And basically we're getting further and further into security for clients. We'd love to get to the point where we're out there doing third-party assessments for TPN for folks. I mean, in my lifetime, I've been through quite a few audits, and probably most of them don't apply anymore because, the threat vectors have changed, threat actors have changed. It's just something you've got to keep on top of. And if you don't have the people to keep on top of it, there are people in the industry who can help. reach out, please.
Yeah. So have there been any big breaches in the entertainment industry this last year? Public that we know about?
There have been quite a few. What we do is we look, because again, anybody can be vulnerable. There was just one on a major data repository, but it's again, providing visibility, and then it's how do you solve for the problem? Because it's not if you're going to get breached, it's when, right? We are all potentially vulnerable for that. So, you know, most of the resources, by the way, from TPN are free. You can go on and get the information. Nobody should have to guess. We don't compete on content security in this industry. And even just educating yourself to know, and we're in a gig society right now where a lot of people will do freelance work and other things, and so making sure that, you know, as the person who is going to someone, that at least you know that you're trying to keep yourself as secure as possible, actually can be a market differentiator for you, because you can say that you know, you're trying to pay attention to where there could be potential vulnerabilities. And that's a big challenge for companies as you talk about globalization. When you are dealing with companies all over the world and you have one small company, you know, in Southeast Asia doing these translations and another company doing metadata management for you, being able to speak the same language, that's the biggest challenge, so that you know that you're all looking towards the same goals. And I think that that's a key, security or otherwise, of being able to align and make sure that whoever you're working with or working for, that you're all working towards the same point.
Great. We are beginning to run out of time, and I know that everybody's been waiting with bated breath to talk about the all-important AI, and maybe we can also loop that in with things that you might be excited or expecting or hoping to see at NAB in your conversation. So who wants to
my journey with AI is I became endlessly fascinated several years ago. Deep dive. Phil's laughing. I mean, it was the last time I remember getting that deeply involved was, like, I don't know, playing like Sega football in college or something. You know, I just woke up and started playing with it every day and all weekend and all the tools. And I literally took weeks off from work and literally went out to the desert just to play with all the tools, so I to have time to see what these things do. And then I educated myself. I literally went to take some certifications at MIT to really understand the science and the application of these things and where the opportunities were. And I'll tell you, and now I'm working with a lot of founders that are building super interesting things. And I'll maintain that it's just another tool. And it's not going to take our jobs. It's going to replace tasks, but that's what we've always built technology for, is to do things that we don't want to do, right? To speed up certain processes so we can get to the stuff we really want to do, or the things that we're better suited to do, which is creativity. And you know, these generative AI tools don't create anything. They recreate things. The real creation, I'll maintain, comes from human experience, imagination, inspiration, based on real emotional experiences that we've had as humans. I really believe that. That's
so it's not going to take away editors' jobs? It's
not going to take away editors' jobs. It will replace certain editors' tasks.
That's so slippery.
Where...
I mean, I feel like it's hard to bifurcate.
Okay, how many editors love to label clips and drag them into bins and do all of that work? And that's
like having a break in their day when you're not doing a high demand thing that someone has got a 10 out of 10 stress level on?
The creative choice and taste, which was, I think, what you were talking about before, right? You were talking about taste, like those decisions, those subjective decisions.
Through action.
I fully agree. I'm not going to debate that. I think categorically, we've always built tools to replace certain tasks that we don't want to do in the first place, so that we can have more time to do the things that we're better suited to do.
Is that what it is, or is it to make the process faster and cheaper?
It's
right now, it doesn't really make it much faster and cheaper in some cases.
I guess here's what I'll say, and I really believe this until somebody proves it differently, but I'm going to stick to this. This is my statement. I'm going to stick to it. That the human creative process will continue to flourish. There will be certain things these tools will do for us, so we have more time to be creative.
All right, let's be very specific then. What are we going to see at NAB that you're excited about in the AI world?
Again, I honestly don't know. We'll see what happens when we go to NAB.
Right.
But I'm focused on, I think, trying to make sure we fix the real problem, which is the economics and monetization and bringing more money into our industry and to creative endeavors and, LA and all the rest of it. And I think technology, including AI, but lots of other technologies will help fix those problems. But again, as an arm wave, I don't think if you're a creative, you need to worry about your job being taken.
Well, it
These
didn't
tools
seem like
don't
very
do
many
creative.
people were that worried when we asked if they were. So
exactly.
There you go.
Yeah.
But what about you, Jeff? Are you going to NAB, Jeff?
I am.
What are you hoping to see there? And are any of them AI enabled?
One of the AI enabled things is over there, Quickture.
Okay.
So
waving a hand.
their system allows you to do paper edits. So you've got a half an hour long documentary or an hour long documentary shoot. You can go through and get summarizations. You can tell it, hey, give me a 2-minute blurb for social. You know what? Make that funny. Make it start with a joke. And it'll go through and create that. It's going to be all jump cuts because there's no computer visualization yet.
That's a good example.
Yeah. So, and the thing is that it allows you to do certain things that you wouldn't necessarily have the time to do because you're busy dealing with the story. So, hey, let's take care of these smaller parts. The other thing also that's out there is AI, basically more utilitarian AI is going to be applied toward archives of material, going back and finding ways to monetize things we already have in the can. Mm-hmm. There's tons of footage out there that never wound up on air or in a film. It's still out there somewhere. That sort of stuff can be recombined and turned into content that makes sense. No one's done it because it's too cost prohibitive. Sending thousands of people in to look at millions of hours worth of content doesn't make sense. Going through and saying, find me everything with this person doing that, bam, there it is.
That sounds exciting. That sounds very creative. Yeah. Okay. Rory, do you use any AI-inflected tools?
I can't say that I do. Well, you know what? No, I will walk that back. I've used the depth map tool in Resolve, and I believe that model is trained. It would fall under the large umbrella as something that is a model that's trained. The tool I'm most excited about from NAB is actually Baselight for Mac.
Oh, okay.
That's like,
right.
To be really specific, that's what I'm very excited for that system to be accessible.
Oh, I didn't realize they were offering Baselight. That's very cool.
It's awesome.
Very cool.
There's a trial available on the. I don't work on Baselight. I just have always loved that color corrector, and I think that their support team is wonderful.
Right. So. Yeah. Well, I think it's so too early in the game to know what all AI will enable, although I think it will enable a lot of really interesting things. Will it include people losing jobs or having their role diminished? I don't know. Thoughts?
So I think that too, I think it's valuable, whatever you're attracted to or not, the opposite of attracted to, it's valuable to find the creators that like those similar tools or dislike the same set of tools because you can choose to move together, and I do think that there's strength in numbers. If there's a way you like working, I don't know. There's just something about the we want our tools to remove to remove unwanted tasks. I feel like everybody's here because we like storytelling, and the way it's important in the craft of storytelling to connect to people that have a different experience than you. And I feel like philosophically, I have a hard time swallowing the idea of it's definitely good to remove tasks that we don't want to do.
Well, so I guess my answer to that, Rory, is if you, by doing those tasks yourself, makes you a better creative, and it unlocks, your real, true creative potential, then you should continue to do that. and then you'll be a better creative. If that's your thesis, that doing some of those tasks makes you better as a creative, then great, and guide the way for the rest of the creatives. So what I say isn't there aren't exceptions. Of course, there's exceptions to the things that I'm saying. Of course, there are things that you're going to choose to continue to do, but there are also lots of tasks that you might not. How many times are you sitting with a client that you have the wrong timeline up, or you have shots that aren't right, and you're scrambling, and the client's waiting for 20 minutes? Wouldn't it be great for those problems to be solved, and you don't have to worry? You could get right down to the session with the client and just get into getting that look set, And so I'm talking about those things that we waste time.
I do think there will always be human error, and to eliminate the expectation that there will be human error is going to invite a lot of the opposite of empathy and bad working relationships.
Yeah. Well, I guess, and listen, you could be a great pioneer and a great leader to what these tools, how they can be used. And by the way, I challenge everybody, if there's any concern, start using them, because you'll not only find what these things can do, but you'll find real quickly what they can't do. And sometimes that's the most, and there's so much they cannot do.
Right, I would be interested. I mean, I've seen a couple of interesting videos put together from, the one that comes to mind is the House of David show on Amazon that used, I think, 73 generative AI shots. But the videos are always from the perspective of the showrunner, and I really wonder if there's any kind of like, I just wonder how the pixel pushers are doing. I just hope they're,
good thought.
Because if suddenly your showrunner can be like, hey, this shot is 70% there, why can't you get it the last 30%? I hope that it doesn't invite people to assume like ineptitude on the part of pixel. It's like, have you ever heard that story about Picasso where like he's at a cafe and somebody's like, hey, Picasso, draw me a picture. And he's like, sure. And sketches a thing on the napkin and hands it to him, and he's like, all right, that'll be $5,000. And the passerby is like, what? How dare you? And he's like, well, the guy goes, it took you 5 minutes, but Picasso goes, it didn't take me 5 minutes, it took me a lifetime.
And I that with $1 million.
something like that, yeah.
I think it really also boils down to whether or not the tools are being done to you, or you are choosing to use the tools. One of the things we're seeing is, one of the things I'm interested to see is NVIDIA's desktop stuff, DGX Spark. So basically all that powerful stuff they've been running the cloud with, workstations. They're available in workstations now, which means I could take one of those and have it in my house and play with any and all of these tools, all this incredible, powerful stuff, without having to, have someone breathing down my neck to do it. The tool sets are going to be democratized, and if I think we end up retreating from hyperscalers, this may be the way that this will happen, where, yes, we're still using some of these tools, we're having it to augment our own personal creative journeys, but it's not being forced upon us, because the tools are no longer centralized like they have been.
And I think Seth brings up a good point when he encourages everybody to try the tools that are out there. A lot of them are publicly available, and if you haven't tried them, you owe it to yourself, like he said, to find out what it can and can't do.
I would also encourage people in the tech leadership space too, like to give some training away to these folks that are looking for.
They do that though, and I think that that's actually a really good point, especially for anybody in here who is wondering what they're going to do, is that there is so much free training in all of these adjacent fields that you can go online and train yourself and start to at least be familiar, and then if you need to do more formal training and education, then find, like KeyCode has training and others, but being able to then upskill yourself, because that's actually really the word for today, is we all have to upskill. And I will give you as a personal example, my boyfriend who is in insurance, so not related to this at all, he was struggling with his newsletters, right? They were written like him, and he didn't want to give it to a marketing person and whatever, so he starts playing around with ChatGPT. And he starts finding the power of ChatGPT, where he could say, this is what I want to say, but I don't know how to say it. He has gotten so much more engagement from outside clients from these newsletters because he is telling the tool where he needs help and it's providing him with help. So the lesson here is really that play with these tools, understand what you like and what you don't like, and then you can use and understand what makes sense for you to use as an artist. So it's about leveraging it to help you, not to take away your job. Now, there will be jobs that are going to go away.
Like writers of newsletters, for example.
Yeah, ChatGPT. Exactly. Exactly.
Sorry, I'm a writer.
Well, right. But just because I have a computer and ChatGPT doesn't mean I can write like you. Right?
I'm partly joking, partly not joking.
Yeah, right. Well, exactly. So artistry is still artistry. Picasso is still Picasso. People who have creative vision and storytelling are still creatives and are going to still tell stories. Remember when Blair Witch Project came out?
Yeah.
Oh my God, it was shot on a camcorder. It looks terrible. The storytelling was the point, not about how they captured the image.
Yeah. And the thing is, if you go to Upskill and find that you don't find the ways to upskill yourself and you end up doing that, you didn't find it on YouTube, put it on YouTube. Shoot the video. We're in the business. Do it.
So anything more about NAB, of what you're going to see? Rory, are you going to NAB?
I'm working, yay! So I'm not. But I really mostly the
Just
film
the
land is the announcement I'm the most excited about. I hope there's lots of opportunity for everyone to also learn the difference between QLED and quantum dot OLED, because I feel like I'm seeing those get confused a lot, and they're two different technologies and are both, good options.
So are we gonna see a lot of AI-enabled tools at this NAB, or are we in that lag point where they're still mainly in startup mode?
A lot of people saying they have AI in it.
Exactly. Yes. Oh, well, Seth, give us some advice on how to tell the real AI from the not real AI.
I think we're getting into a place where it just doesn't matter. Look at the tool. Does it fix the problem you want it to fix? And either it has AI or it doesn't, but does it work? And I can't wait to get to that place where we're not like calling things out because it's just like we're not calling things out because they're digital anymore, right? It used to be digital. Now it's, soon it'll have machine learning, it'll have algorithms, it'll have AI, it'll have agents in it or whatever, but it shouldn't matter. Look at the tool. You have a problem? Is it fixing the problem?
Well, it is the new toy, isn't
Right.
it? And I use the word toy in quotes. It's more than a toy, obviously, but people are very excited right now, and a lot of it is, thinking it'll do everything, including take away their jobs, but not really knowing.
There's a lot of hype, and it's being used as a marketing tool
Exactly.
right now, even when it doesn't have it in there. And I will tell you, the way I look at AI and looking at these tools is, I'm not going to NAB to look at AI tools. I'm looking at whatever is new and doing something different, or whatever is crossover, and what is going to be the thing that's coming in the future, because I think that will tells me more of a story of what I need to focus on, as opposed to, because AI, we've been talking about AI for years. I mean, and I can remember back, 10 years ago, using machine learning and pre-AI tools. So this isn't actually that new. It's hitting an inflection point at this moment.
Agreed.
So everybody is very hyper-focused on it, and a lot of it is I think some of it is misconceptions, and some of it is how do we then let us use it and leverage it as a tool for ourselves as opposed to it taking over. And I think that's where the fear and people are paralyzed at the moment right now.
Some people, it doesn't seem like this audience is paralyzed.
Yeah, which is great.
Which is great, but it seems like, is this a good time to segue into questions from the audience, both streaming and present?
I have a question. If you were sitting here in the spring of 1990, would the conversation about the new Avid Media Composer be any different to your conversation about AI? And if so, how?
I wouldn't have contributed. I was 3.
I think it's a really good point you're making, because let's talk about that for a quick second. What was happening? What were editors doing then? They were splicing film. What was an assistant editor doing? They were splicing, they were writing, and hanging them up and throwing things on the floor, as they say. And, and they were putting things into actual bins, right? And, you know, if you went back in time, if we could go back in time and talk to that assistant editor right now, and, you know, 80s or 1990 or something, and you said, hey, we're from the future, and just want to let you know that in a few years, you're not going to be splicing actual film, you're going to be on this computer thing. And by the way, you don't know this yet, there's this thing called a mouse. Seriously, you'd have to explain a mouse. And so they would think you're from, well, they would probably think you're from the future, but they wouldn't be able to relate to you because you'd be trying to explain to them that you're going to drag and drop digital representations of those clips into digital representations of bins and type in the clip names and all of that stuff, and you totally lose them. Or they would get panicky because they would think, well, if it's going to be done on a computer, I guess I'm out of a job because the editor's not going to need me anymore. It sounds like it's so easy, the editor can just do it. Of course, that was the furthest thing from the truth. And I guess the big takeaway is we're right now at this really weird place where we can't actually see what these new roles are going to be. So when we talk about it will replace certain tasks, it will. That's why we build technology, to do things for us better and faster. But there's always, always, in every turning point, new tasks to do. So that assistant editor, no one knew at the time in 1990 exactly what the editor's tasks were going to be, really, right? That was a journey, and everybody figured it out together, and then life was good again. And it expanded our industry.
I don't know if all assistant editors would say that life was good, better at this point because they're in a room all by themselves, not next to the editor.
Yeah, well, I mean, the point is life went on, everything was fine.
Went on.
And right now we're just at this weird point where we can't really make out what those new tasks are going to be, but they're there. And it only...
Cloudy because of the 2-year work stoppage, maybe? Is that like...
No, I don't think so. I don't think so.
But in 1990, there was a work stoppage, and I can remember my husband at the time having to drive limousines because there was no work. So, it again, completely cyclical. It happens over and over.
We're repeating the same...
we do have amnesia.
Yeah. So I appreciate the techno-optimism, and I appreciate that everyone's like, AI is not going to take my job. I hate to be a downer, but what I would like to observe, and what you're saying in that dynamic, is that the technology will expand opportunities. But one of the things, when we say AI, we really mean automation. It's that automation that we're afraid of. And there is going to be automation of some of these things in a way that, my question, what I'd like to see you respond to is the thesis that while it won't take jobs per se, it will shrink the industry. Like copywriting won't go away, but copywriters are going to be a much smaller industry, and the value that they can command for their work is going to be smaller as a result. And I think we're naive to think that that's not going to happen to a ton of our jobs here. Farming, we make more produce than ever. Farmers make up 1% instead of 98% of labor. So that phenomenon hitting this industry, I mean, we're seeing it happen. I'd like to hear what your response to that would be.
So I'm glad you brought up farming. It's honestly one of my favorite analogies to all of this because there was a time where humans had to pick all the corn themselves, right? And then all of a sudden somebody built a machine raking across the cornfield, picking all the corn. What did all the corn pickers do? There were actually, what happened, this is an actual study from MIT, it didn't, sure, there were a lot less people needed to pick the corn, but there were 5 times as many jobs needed because you needed people now to sort the corn, you needed people to fix the machines, you needed people to sell the machines, make better machines, more people in the iron mills, you know. So yes, if you were dead set on being a corn picker for the rest of your life, you might have been in trouble. But that's, you know, we build technology to replace some of these tasks so we can focus on different things. So to your point, there was a time where 70% of Americans were farmers. And then, now there's only 1%. But what's inevitably happened is that humans in society were able to focus on other things, actually more creative things. What you're leaving out is look at the numbers of how many creative professionals exploded after farming was mechanized. It's a massive number. You could do the research on yourself. And the change in GDP and all of that. So life did get better. Humans were able to do more leisurely things, more creative things when mechanization of agriculture happened. So you have to look at the other side. So copywriters, things like that, there will be certain roles, certain tasks that are going to be not needed, but there's going to be all of these other new roles that are going to be needed.
I mean, I agree with that 100%.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is, like, a lot of these editor jobs, the number of editors will shrink, and what an editor can command. We used to, I mean, it wasn't that long ago, budgets for music videos was $600,000 to $6 million. Now it's $3,000 to $2,000. You know, because of changes in the industry. So if you want to be creative in the music space, you're dealing with that. And I feel like we're going to see stuff, similar dynamics at play, and I'd just like you to explore those dynamics.
Sure. I mean, listen, none of us have a crystal ball. I'm just looking at every other technological turning point in history and how that's played out. And until we see evidence that it's different in some way, you know, we just have to assume that it's just the same cycle repeating.
Well, except we don't really know how many blacksmiths became car mechanics.
That's true.
We don't. We don't know what happened to them.
Hello.
Yes, over here.
Veronica from Deluxe. I actually wanted to add to that. You are right. In our industry, we've moved from film to tape capture to DVD authoring to streaming, now to AI for machine translation and so on and so forth, right? And so the industry is always changing, and adaptability is a huge component to how we are successful. I also wanted to add, we are taking and not just upscaling, but we're also remastering people in their knowledge and their skill sets. So with that, I want to ask a question, because you guys are seasoned. Where are you getting your information, right? Where are you getting your information every day for us to learn, right? If we have these concerns, where should we look for the daily news would be my first one. And then my second, where should I look for information on about learning AI? Is it NVIDIA? Is it, if I want to take a course, where do I take this course would be my two questions. Thank you.
Great question. I'll tell you what I've done. So I mentioned earlier, I did a kind of a higher level thing, and there's, you know, some of the big universities have these programs. You can do executive courses that are 6 or 8 weeks, real deep dives, takes some time. You have to do them nights. You forget your nights and weekends for 6 weeks, you know, but that's one. That's intense. But I always say, like, if you want, you know, a real crash course and almost like plugging your brain into the matrix, go do one of those MIT or Stanford or Harvard, you know, sprint courses for executives. It's really effective. But then there's Coursera. Go on Coursera. They're free. You can do prompt engineering classes. You can do, you know, any number of you know, hands-on courses about all of these applications. Another one is, depending on your role in the industry, whether it's creative or administrative or you're in a leadership role, you just do a Google search on the tools that are available, you know, AI-powered tools that do what you know, that you do, and start using them. Download them. They're usually free, a free trial, and spend some time just working with them. And and that honestly is, I think, the number one thing. Just use them. You'll, again, find out what they can do, but you also find out what they can't do. The big takeaway is, if you're worried, you won't be worried anymore. You'll figure out how to incorporate them into your world and make you better. And I think that there's almost nothing better than that, is leaning into them and checking them out and using them.
One of the things I do is TLDR. It's a mailing list. So there's TLDR marketing, there's TLDR for AI. So you just do a search for TLDR and look for the specific newsletter you want, and it starts coming to your email every morning. The other thing in the industries, the dailies. Read the dailies. Definitely worthwhile, and you'll see where things are going. I think 2 of the links I've already shown came out of the dailies newsletter. So, and then when you see something that's of interest, that's when you go for the deep dive. Hey, I'd like to check out those tools. The one thing you also have to realize is the tools are usually free. It's just the amount of the usage you can get out of them. Hey, I've reached my limit for today. So sometimes you may, hey, this is of interest. Let me pay in and do a little bit of this. The other thing out there is an app called Substack. It's a reader app. It's on your phone. you can subscribe to a bunch of different subcategories to read.
Did you want to say something, Marie? You looked horrified for a second.
Oh, did I? Sorry. We just protect your data. If you're using an app and it's free, they're probably using your data.
Yeah, well,
yes.
yeah.
Throw away email addresses. Set up a Google email that has nothing to do with you. Give it no personal information. That's the one you do.
You're using generative AI. We're training, are we not? Are training the models? You guys are the experts, not me. I mean, are we?
What's the question?
If you're using generative AI at this point, are you training the model?
There are toggles to disallow that. You just have to go find it first.
Yeah, I don't want to do it for free.
Intellectual property rights on, do not put it into a generative AI engine. Just like you wouldn't, again, leave your high-value painting in your car with the doors unlocked, right? So you just have to use it with that kind of thing in mind. I am an avid newsletter person. So I'm like, oh, I'm curious about low Earth orbit satellites. Let me go look that up. And then I'll find it from that. There are associations around all of these different technologies. They may have their own newsletters. There's a lot of industry newsletters. And that's how I found out about the story that Deloitte, their report, that came out today. It came into my newsletter. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I'm going to mention it tonight. So it's just being curious and going out and doing searches.
Following the breadcrumbs.
Exactly.
We have a question over here.
Yes. I think for basically what we've been talking about mostly today is how to upskill people who are currently in the industry. My question is around how AI is affecting the people who are coming into the industry as new or younger voices. Fostering young voices is something that I try and do quite a bit in my career, and one of the things that we deal with quite frequently in the industry currently is seeing the AI generated whatever it is and quality checking it to see if it is actually good or if it's just good enough to get across. And I think coming into the industry before AI was a thing, I was able to figure out my way and pretty much see what is good and what is not tactfully. But I think people who are coming into the industry now are kind of not able to learn that way. So I'm trying to figure out how to kind of give them those skills without making them not use AI, because they're going to use it no matter what.
I have a library of images that are like edge case images where it broke in a really interesting way, and I tend to save those and use them as this is how I can, vet color pipelines or looks and that sort of thing. So I think saving hard cases of whatever it is that you're doing could be a really good way to pass that information along. Like, oh, here's my folder of stuff that I broke, and here's how I fixed it. I think it's such a gift when someone is willing to share with you something that was really hard for them. So, and also that's awesome that you're doing that. Thanks. It's really great.
We have another question.
Hi. So I'm trying to find it on LinkedIn. I feel like I saw a case study on First We Feast, which was the Hot Ones show. Celebs go and eat spicy foods progressively. Their faces melt. Entertainment. I feel like I saw something on LinkedIn where they're now having these AI automated line cuts because they're almost always on when the person's talking. It's pretty easy to take a 3-camera setup, and so if person A is talking, you're on person A. If you're on person B is talking, you're on person B. And before it even hits the edit bay, the timeline is there, dropped on. That sounds cool. I mean, it's kind of a removal of humans in some point, but I guess the question is, are we at the adapt or die place, kind of in terms of how many arrows you have to put into your quiver as editors or as post-humans? I feel like you can't just edit a picture. You have to know how to use, the VO tools, 11 Labs to make your VO changes and stuff like that. And I know the first gen AI, all AI ads, they're here. They're not coming. They're here. And it's just a matter of time before, why spend $1 million when you can, have it all done in agency and, knock out ad after ad after ad like that looks like millions of dollars. How do you plan to stay relevant in times like, 6 years from now, 10 years from now, when that's the road it's going?
The second ad looks like $750,000. The third ad looks like $300,000. And pretty soon you're down to 12-cent ads. Replicative fading. That's the one thing that AI will never be able to figure out is, hey, I guess everyone wants to see Marvel movies. They've done billions of dollars. No, eventually the quality of those will drop and the interest of the audience will drop. The thing is, we're still the only ones that are going to be able to come around and come up with new ideas and ways of things that we'd like to communicate. People will be able to duplicate that, just like every TV show has got a duplicate somewhere that someone's made to try to make money. The concepts will still be the same.
And as again, like Life for a Pixel Pusher, honestly, I have had a lot of very, very, very big and serious conversations with myself and also the ones I love about why do we do this really? And for me, it is I about color specifically, I like being able to talk to someone and have one conversation about what their idea is and how we direct the conversation together. It's not like endless iteration. So for me, if I have to do a different job in order to have that interaction, I'll do it. I guess that's a public way of saying I'll bail. If the draw for me, I'm a creative professional, but I work with people. That's the people are the only thing that matter. It's the good collaborators, and that's whatever. Oh, stop. But no, really, I do think that there's ways for us to be. Because people that have this disease where it's I'm going to work with people and make dreams, we'll go find ways to do it. Well, we will. I know we will. It just do we have to sell paintings on highways, off ramps? I don't know, maybe, but we'll find a way.
Now, before you all came in, Rory and I were talking about, I saw an article today, or someone posted something on LinkedIn, an editor, and he talked about, I'm an editor, and right now I'm working at Trader Joe's. I don't know if you saw that. Tara Abrams posted, I know Tara, so I saw it came across my feed. And what that editor talked about is there's no shame in feeding your family and taking care of things, but actually the joy that he gets because he's with other creative people who are kind of in the same situation. And so being with other creative people gives him that hope. And he hopes he doesn't know where his next job's going to be as an editor, but it was a kind of a hopeful way of looking at things. And I think it's at any point in history we all have to make a choice, right? I know I look at my career and I went from being in a cutting room to working at a studio, then opening a post-production facility, and it goes on and on and on and on. And at each decision point or each inflection point, I made a choice about what I wanted to do with my life. And some of that had financial reasons, some of it had personal reasons. And I think all of us, whether you're doing a creative job, whether you're a car mechanic, whether you're an aerospace engineer, we all have to make those choices.
And just because we've been talking about AI, I have to just throw this in. I don't know the specific reasons why those people were working at Trader Joe's, but the vast majority of the people that are out of work right now, it has nothing to do with AI. It has to do with the economic disruption. Just going to put that out there. So let's not conflate, It doesn't have to do with technological evolution. It's the economics that have been disrupted.
I think you're speaking to
okay, great.
Choirs,
okay.
Right.
Well, we were talking about AI, and then we talked about people without jobs. Sometimes that gets a little lost in translation.
But also the important thing is we're humans doing human things. And if you are out there and you've lost your job, you've got financial pressures, and you're feeling it, please talk to somebody.
Yes.
Please.
Yes. And
Motion Picture and Television Fund is great. You can always start there if anyone needs resources.
I think that's a great place to wrap up. It is a very human business, and we're all feeling the pain in the industry and want to make sure that everybody takes care of themselves.
Well, big thanks to the panel today. Seth, Carrie, Rory, Jeff, Deborah. It was fantastic. Just want to let everyone know our demo pods are open. So we have Avid and Quickshare. We have our KeyCode education team, and the bar is still open for another hour. So please socialize, network. But thanks again to our panel, and please go stop by the demo pods and check out some technology.
Thank you so much. That was